We're back. We're back with another episode of the Football Game Tonight podcast, the FGT podcast, where you guys can tune in and find out more about all your latest pro football news and action. We have the Texans and Colts game that we're going to recap in this latest episode. And really, this game is all about CJ Stroud. And really, the Texans story is all about CJ Stroud. Because remember, this was not a good situation before CJ Stroud got there, before D'Amico Ryans got there, before Will Anderson got there. It's safe to say that the expectations for the Texans coming into this season was not very high, but CJ Stroud changed all of that, and he's made a real case to be the offensive rookie of the year just because he stepped up and delivered everything that, the Texans could have hoped for. He looks the part when it comes to, being a franchise quarterback, someone that this team is going to be able to build around for years to come, just because, the arm strength and the throws and really the ability that's been on display when it comes to CJ Stroud. You look at that first play in that game, goes deep, or the first offensive play for the Texans in that game, goes deep to Nico Collins. A great throw by CJ Stroud instantly energizes that Texans team. And, when you're making throws like that, and you're opening things up for your offense, good things tend to happen in the National Football League. There's no doubt CJ Stroud was the better quarterback out of the two in this game. He was going head-to-head with Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is a good player. We know that because just of what he's been able to do with the Colts this year, because, this was basically a playoff game for the Texans and Colts. The winner got into the playoffs, and the loser went home. And the Colts were right there. If they would have won this game, they would have got in. So Gardner Minshew is a good player, but he's not on the same level or up to the caliber of C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud is on a different level. That's why the Texans were able to win this game. He's a big-time player, and he's a guy that's only going to get better as he gets more reps in the National Football League, and someone that is certainly capable of leading this Texans team into the future. They have to feel good about the direction that this team is heading in, and, D'Amico Ryans is a big part of that too. You have C.J. Stroud, the electrifying quarterback who's, pumping energy into this team, and then you have this new coach in D'Amico Ryans that is, really building a culture for the Texans, which has helped, the Texans kind of reinvent themselves when it comes to their brand. This brand that the Texans has is a lot, better than it's been in the past, and it's gonna be attractive for more players. Suddenly, the Texans are a destination because you can win there. Not only that, they have this culture that they're building that is something that other players are gonna want to be a part of that because of D'Amico Ryans and the way he connects with his players and the way he leads this team. The fact that they're already having success. They go out and they get CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, a couple of players that are a part of this nucleus now. Then the other guy that's a real key piece to the puzzle is obviously Nico Collins. We saw what he was able to do in this game. You can make an argument that he was the best player in this game. Jonathan Taylor was really good too, but I think Nico Collins was the best player in this game, just dominated from the get-go. There was a point in this game when, the Colts kind of tightened up on defense, in the middle of the game. I think, second, third quarter, the Colts kind of tightened up on defense, and there was less daylight there for this Texans offense, and CJ Stroud had less time in the pocket to operate because the pocket was collapsing because the Colts were starting to get home a little bit. So what does CJ Stroud do? He basically weathers the storm, finds a way to hang around, and then got better later on in the game towards the end of the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, And the same kind of went for Nico Collins. Nico Collins started really hot on the big play, and then later on in the game, like the third and the fourth quarter, he really started to turn it back on. So a great showing overall for Nico Collins. He's a big piece of the puzzle for them, and he's a true number one receiver in this National Football League. That's the growth he's made as a player. And look at what taking a quarterback early on does for the other players on the team. They take C.J. Stroud early on in the draft, and look at the impact it's had on Nico Collins. Nico Collins looks really good all of a sudden in this offense, has made huge strides because of C.J. Stroud, and those guys are actually now at the point where they're both progressing together, which is going to be a huge lead in this team into the future as well, because those two guys are on the same page. They're only going to get better. And then late in the game, when they had to go win the game, those two guys made some nice plays. I think about the deep comeback route that was, I think it was near the right sideline that C.J. Stroud kind of just made a play on, made a nice throw, got it out there, heaved it out to Nico Collins. It was like a comeback route, I think, and Nico Collins was able to make the catch. And then they had a nice deep pass right down the middle of the field that set up the Devin Singletary touchdown. So that was great work by C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins to get this team down near the goal line, so Devin Singletary was able to do the rest. That was a big drive for C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins. Those guys, they're looking really good right now. And, when they keep adding pieces to the puzzle, more players that they get in the draft that kind of align with their vision. Not only that, the free agents who all of a sudden think to themselves, hey, if I sign with the Texans, we can win. So the chances of landing free agents once, free agency opens up improves drastically, because now guys know they can win if they go play with C.J. Stroud and play for DeMeco Ryans. Not only that, the culture and the improving of the brand, entices more players to join the team. So everything is looking really good for the Texans. They're going to go to the playoffs. C.J. Stroud, not only hits the ground running as a rookie, puts himself in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Not only that, punches the ticket for the Texans when it comes to making the playoffs in year one, which significantly sets up the DeMeco Ryans and C.J. Stroud era with the Texans. And then you look in the rear view a little bit. When, Bill O'Brien was the coach of this team. And Bill O'Brien actually had a lot of success. This team went to the playoffs quite a bit. They had a lot of success in the AFC South. They actually took the Chiefs down to the wire. I think it was in 2020, played them real tough in the playoffs. So this team wasn't a slouch under Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien actually had a lot of success, but you look at the way it ended when they traded DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals and didn't get nearly enough back for him. It was a bad trade for the Texans. You think back at, when the players were kind of starting to revolt against Bill O'Brien just because he had irritated them so much with some of the decisions he made and kind of, pushed DeAndre Hopkins out the door. That didn't sit well with the rest of those players in the team. So based off, where this team's headed and their trajectory that they have now under DeMeco Ryans and C.J. Stroud, even though the Texans were very successful with Bill O'Brien, I actually think their trajectory is higher now, because I trust the general that they have in DeMeco Ryans more than Bill O'Brien. Yeah, Bill O'Brien won the division and would go to the playoffs, but I actually think they're going to be closer to actually winning a Super Bowl under DeMeco Ryans, just because he is going to be able to connect with his players, just because they do respect him so much in that locker room. And I think he's just won everybody over with how he handles himself. I think the mistakes that Bill O'Brien made, DeMeco Ryans isn't going to make. He's going to understand and have a pulse on the situation a little better. Remember, Bill O'Brien had the Patriot way in him a little bit. He would kind of just do things his own way, and if you don't like it, tough luck. And, players don't respond to that approach as well in today's era. I think DeMeco Ryans is going to treat you a little bit more like a human being, more than a cog in the system. Like, the Patriots are always next man up. It's more about the team over the player more. I don't think players really buy into that as much. And I think DeMeco Ryans, like I said, is going to treat every individual with respect a little bit more than Bill O'Brien did. And I think that's ultimately going to, with this current era players, I think if you get it right, where you build the right culture and you're a winning team and you respect the players at an individual level for their own uniqueness and their own personalities, and you care about their families and things like that, I think that can actually go a little bit further. So, yeah, I think the general in DeMeco Ryans is going to be better than Bill O'Brien, despite all the success that Bill O'Brien did have with this Texas team, because you can't just strip Bill O'Brien of all the success that he had with the Texans. He was very successful. That team was on top of the division. They were always going to playoffs. Like I said, played the Chiefs really tough. So they were actually in a pretty good state with Bill O'Brien. At the end, it just all unraveled. DeAndre Hopkins basically walking out of practice, upset with the ownership, upset with Bill O'Brien, gets traded for a bag of chips. That was a bad move on behalf of the Texans. They didn't get nearly enough back for DeAndre Hopkins, and then the whole thing kind of collapsed. I don't see that happening with DeMeco Ryans. I think C.J. Stroud proved that he can carry the torch for an NFL franchise in year one, and I think if he's so ahead of the curve already as a rookie, when they start getting more playmakers in here outside of Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz had a few nice catches in this game as well. Clearly, he's a piece of the puzzle. But when they start really filling in the other pieces, it's going to be really good for C.J. Stroud and the Texans. So they're definitely looking good. And then the other part why I think DeMeco Ryans is going to be better than Bill O'Brien is, remember, he had a lot of success as a player in the National Football League, so he knows what it takes to be successful at this level. Clearly, that has shown in his approach to the game as a head coach. Clearly, he's setting the tone, and clearly the team is disciplined and getting better and trending in the right direction. So everything seems to be lining up for this Texans team. The stars are definitely aligning. CJ Stroud is the guy that can, make all the throws for this Texans team. And really, I think, they're going to be a live by the gun, die by the gun team on the offensive side of the ball, and just put it all on CJ Stroud and let him do his thing with Nico Collins. Clearly, those guys are showing that they're capable of getting it done. They basically won a playoff game tonight by beating this Colts team, even though now it's officially the playoffs. It was win or go home, and they rose to the challenge just like C.J. Stroud has done this whole entire season. He's got it done, and he's delivered for this team the whole entire season, and he just keeps raising the bar for this team. It was another big moment, another chance for him to showcase his abilities and what he's able to do. And what do you know? The guy who's stepped up the whole entire season does it again during crunch time against a Colts team that was pretty good and pretty well prepared, a team that easily could have won this game and punched their ticket to the playoffs. C.J. Stroud says, no way, I'm not letting that happen. Right away, bombs away to Nico Collins. Later on in the game, gets some throws to Dalton Schultz, starts working Nico Collins on the comeback down the sideline, deep throw down the middle of the field to Nico Collins, which sets up, like I said, the Devin Singletary touchdown. No doubt about it, C.J. Stroud was the better quarterback in the game. He was the better quarterback. Minshew's a good player. Stepped up this year, really did a good job stepping in for Anthony Richardson. But, he's not C.J. Stroud. He's not. And C.J. Stroud can make throws that Gardner Minshew can't. I thought Minshew did a good job of this game of kind of breaking down what the defense is doing and knowing where to go with the football, but it was mainly 10 yards and under. It was a lot of the underneath stuff, whereas with C.J. Stroud, we've seen him uncork some throws in this game and get the vertical passing game going. There wasn't as much vertical passing game there for the Colts. Gardner Minshew is a smart quarterback. Like I said, he can find the holes in the defense, but what makes quarterbacks great in the NFL is they have to be able to use their arm strength to stretch the field vertically and generate some big play offense. And that was the difference in this game between C.J. Stroud and Gardner Minshew. C.J. Stroud hit Nico Collins deep multiple times. And, Gardner Minshew had a nice little vertical pass to Mo Alley Cox. I'm pretty sure Derek Stingley got in there and broke it up. It just wasn't the Colts didn't have the vertical passing attack that the Texans had in this game, which can be traced back to C.J. Stroud. Yeah, your offensive line has to give you time to be able to throw the ball down the field, but there was chances where Gardner Minshew could have done those things. His arm just isn't as strong. That's not his game. C.J. Stroud, now where C.J. Stroud can grow as a passer, is doing some of those things that Gardner Minshew does well, which is knowing where to go with the football, reading the defense and anticipating where the throw is going to be. Being a smart quarterback where you just always know where to go with the football. Right now, the strength of C.J. Stroud's game is clearly being able to stretch the field vertically. He does a good job of that. And some quarterbacks aren't talented enough where they're ever going to be able to stretch the field vertically like that. That's why a lot of guys are backup quarterbacks in the National Football League, because they're never going to have the arm strength to make those throws that C.J. Stroud made tonight in this football game. And then as you get more well-versed in the National Football League and you get more experience, that's when you learn how to read coverages even better. That's when you learn, okay, the defense is shifted this way. I have to hit my tight end on a quick out route in the opposite direction. It just comes from getting a feel for the game. Most rookies, that anticipation and knowing where to go with the football, the things that also made Peyton Manning a great quarterback, a lot of times that takes a little bit longer to develop because you just have to get used to seeing the defenses. You have to get used to what they're trying to do to you and understanding how to counter it. It takes a little bit of time. It takes reps. And C.J. Stroud's still a rookie. He's so far ahead of where most rookies are at, but he's going to grow a little bit as a smart quarterback and knowing where to go with the football. He's already ahead of the curve there too. He's got a great feel for the game, but it was the big plays that really put his stamp on the game tonight. The throw to Nico Collins right away. Those are the plays that you expect from a guy you take early on in the first round who's going to be your franchise quarterback for the next decade. And, C.J. Stroud has lived up to the hype every step of the way. He does it tonight in this game as well. Clearly does have a good feel for the game. Clearly does know where to go with the football. He's going to get even better at those things. He's going to get even better at throwing the ball vertically because he's going to know when he can take those shots down the field and when he can't. He's going to know how to test certain defensive backs in ways that are beneficial to his receiver, whether it's thrown to inside leverage, whether it's thrown away from the cornerback or safety and coverage, deep down the field. those are things you learn, as you get more experience too. I think him and Nico Collins clearly have something special going on. They have a connection that they've developed from all the reps in preseason and now in the regular season as well, because remember, you start developing in training camp and then preseason. All those, it's really all those days in practice where you guys are ironing out the wrinkles between the quarterback and receiver. You do that in training camp, during all those practices during the preseason, and now throughout all these games, now with it just being week 18, by now you guys have figured everything out. I know it's only year one, but they've practiced so many times together that they have it figured out, and they've developed a trust and they've developed a bond in the passing game that they know can be a weapon for this Texans offense. Clearly that was on display against the Colts. And, when you think that about the fact that they're going to build on that and they're going to keep getting even better, it just shows that this Texans team has a very bright future. It just shows that, they do have a very high trajectory. They're going to have a real shot at bringing a Super Bowl back to Houston. Now, I don't think it's going to be this year. I don't think they're there yet, but they're going to keep ascending. They're going to keep getting better. They're going to keep bringing more players into the fold that align with their vision, and then they're going to get a little bit further in the playoffs. Then they'll get even a little bit further in the playoffs. Then that's when we'll see them have a real shot at a Super Bowl. I don't know if they're there yet. I think they're a team that's good enough to go to the playoffs, and I think that's a huge step in the right direction, but you usually don't get it all back at once. The casual fan thinks, okay, they're in the playoffs, they got a shot to win it all. But the truth is, a lot of times these teams take bites. They take a little chunk here, then the next year they take a little bit more of a chunk, and then that third year they go maybe to an AFC championship game, and then they win a Super Bowl, because you're still building it all up. You're still in the process of becoming a true championship contender. Are they a legitimate Super Bowl contender like we view the Chiefs, or like we right now this year, because of how successful they were, we view the Ravens? I don't know if they're that team yet. I think if the Ravens and the Texans met up, the Ravens are going to win that game. I think if the Chiefs and the Texans met up, I think the Chiefs are probably going to win that game. But they're going to keep taking chunks, and they're going to keep getting better under DeMeco Ryans. And, within 2 or 3 years, they're right there, and they're a team that can win in the AFC championship game and get to the Super Bowl and maybe win that Super Bowl. But a lot of times you don't see that team go from a team that picks so early in the draft to making the playoffs and winning it right away. It's just it's almost an unrealistic expectation, because this team was a team that struggled, and just them making the playoffs is a successful year, because they went from a losing team to a winning team to a team that actually made the playoffs. So it was a very successful year for DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, and the rest of those guys. But now to take that next step and be a Super Bowl winning team, you just had to keep building towards the vision. You have to bring in those free agents who now suddenly want to play for the Texans because they like the direction this team is heading. They have to hit on some more draft picks and keep bringing in the young talent, because the young talent is the reason they turned it around, along with DeMeco Ryans, because DeMeco Ryans came in and then they took the risk of getting CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, two impact players on both sides of the ball that were also part of this young nucleus that helped with the execution on the field. Because as good as a coach is, he needs the players that can execute on the field to really turn that thing around. He is in DeMeco Ryans, got those guys in CJ Stroud and Will Anderson. So that helps the execution on the field. And then the coach really builds the culture, which is what DeMeco Ryans has been able to do. Like I said, if they keep adding players and they keep hitting on these young players that they've been able to land in the draft, who've clearly made a huge impact in improving this football team. If those things happen, I think this team's going to be right there, and they're a legitimate force in the National Football League in the next 2 or 3 years. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong, and maybe they light it up and go on a legendary run, and they do have a shot to win the Super Bowl right now. This team has, defied the odds every step of the way with CJ Stroud, with DeMeco Ryans. So who's to say they can't do it again? Now, the odds are certainly not in their favor. There's a slim chance that happens, but there's always a chance in the National Football League any given Sunday. The odds are small, but, who's to say they can't do it if they've already had this much success? Like I said, it's a long shot, but we've seen miracles happen before. Right now, I think they're 2 or 3 years away, but the fact that they're even 2 or 3 years away and they put themselves in that position to, start to close in on a Super Bowl is really a testament of the good work they've done, of how much this team gels as a unit with the leadership that they have, with the players that they have, with the franchise quarterback they've landed. That's a reflection of, how much progress this team has made. So they're closing in on a Super Bowl. And the fact that they're even closing in on a Super Bowl says a lot about this team right now. Like I said, I think they're 2 to 3 years away. If they keep making good decisions, I think they're going to be right there and be a real contender on the AFC side of the bracket. They can't go backwards and have any letdowns. They have to keep nailing on the picks. DeMeco Ryans has to keep setting the tone. The players have to keep buying in. I do believe that will happen. Like I said, they're a long shot in the playoffs just because they've already made so much progress to turn in a losing team into a winning team and then making the playoffs. But maybe they'll pull out a miracle and, take that next step to the point where they're an AFC championship team right away. Then maybe they're only 1 year away. I don't know. Like I said, I think they're 2 or 3 years away, and they have to keep adding free agents, and they have to keep nailing the picks in the draft. But give them all the credit in the world because they put themselves in this position to the point where CJ Stroud is a candidate for Rookie of the Year, where they are a playoff team in year one for DeMeco Ryans. All good signs from the Texans. That's all I got in this latest episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's John Kuzma. Check out footballgametonight.com if you want to advertise on this show. The podcast is growing and doing pretty well. We're always looking for people to advertise on this podcast. You can go to footballgametonight.com and submit your form to be an advertiser on this show. We'll get your product in front of some listeners. Thank you guys so much. I'm signing off.